Hey buddies, Jose from Wire Ninjas. We are home technology integrators. We build systems and circuits of integrity in homes and offices. You should lay down tarp. Now, if you take a look what the cuts are in reference to the tarp itself, you'll notice the tarp is excessive, and that's for a reason. We like to cover everything we possibly can. That way we don't have any cleanup afterwards and we don't make a mess afterwards, you know? It's good to protect the home, the homeowner, the inhabitants, all their belongings. So make sure you tarp and tape before anything. Once it's a little bit extra time, but once you start doing it, you won't go any other way. It's just the right way to do things. And you can use the aviation blankets, but the problem with those is they don't cover a large space. Yes, they are reusable, but then you're looking at washing them. This tarp can be just wrapped up and thrown out. I know it's wasteful, but it expedites the time and it keeps the home clean. Another thing I learned about tarp is you don't want to cheap out. You want to get the more expensive, thicker tarp. If you cheap out and get the really thin tarp, you're going to regret it because there's going to be a million holes in it and it's pretty much redundant at that point because then you're going to end up cleaning the entire floor afterwards. We're here to build circuits, not clean, and the tarp ensures that we can stick to that. So, tarp and tape, that's part of prep work. Let's go over some of the necessary tools. Necessary tools include tarp and tape. We covered that. We're also going to need a few levels, and the levels in this instance are used for drawing cutout lines. The levels are used to make nice clean cutouts. So we run our level here, we draw with a pencil, and we have nice clean cutouts that can be repaired and the wall can be restored to its original state. If you make crazy angled cuts or jagged cuts, it doesn't feel right, it doesn't look right, and it's much harder to repair the drywall. It's a mess for the drywall or the painter crew, and they're not going to be happy with you, and they're definitely going to tell the homeowner. So do things right for yourself, but also for the next guy coming onto the site. So tarp, tape, we got our level. I use a small level for smaller cuts, but I also use a bigger level. Steve, let's grab that big level. I also use a bigger level for bigger cuts. And I'm not using the level, so on a vertical cut, I'm using it as a level, but on a ceiling, you're using it to square off the edges so you have a nice square cut as good as you can. Now, the other thing you're going to need is a drywall knife to cut the drywall. A drywall knife will cover you most of the time. If you encounter something behind the drywall where you absolutely need a cut, you're going to want to use an oscillating saw. This comes into play sometimes, not as often, or yeah, it's rough sometimes. You get through a beam or something like that. Anywhere where you only want to cut the drywall and not cut through the wood, or you're not able to use a drywall knife, this is the way to go. It's safe, it's easy to use, it cuts clean lines, but also it makes a lot of dust. So use this at will or only when necessary, simply because of the dust factor. Now, another thing we use a lot is a gang template or a rough-in template. This is an LV1 or an LV2. It cuts a single gang or a double gang when traced. This is really handy for making smaller cuts. It's a small size, and when you don't need a large cut, it's better to stick to smaller. It's easier to patch, easier to repair, and it looks cleaner in the end. But you can get quick template drawn and cut. You know, it's very, very speedy. Now, tape. Tape is, in this case, primarily used for taping wires to wire pulling devices, which we're going to cover next. So wire pulling devices, I'm going to give you 3 examples. One, this is a flatter type wire pulling device. It's better for slimmer applications, going around corners and stuff. But as you can tell, it's not very rigid. So we have a different one, a longer one for longer runs, but also this one's a lot more rigid. I recommend you have one or both of these. We seem to use both of them. I gotta be honest, we use our glow rods the most, but these really come in handy if you need them. If there's something, you're going around a corner, a bend, or you're trying to get up over a stud, you can bend this at your will. You can see that. You can bend it at your will and get around corners really nicely with these. So you definitely need one or both of these on board. I recommend having both because even though they're kind of the same, the one's way more rigid, one's more flat and less rigid. They each have their own special use. So we carry two of the different snakes. We also have a fiberglass one that's a little bit better at running through conduit, but it's usually specifically for conduit. Now, these we use the most. These are fiberglass rods. There's many shapes, sizes, types. I would not recommend going with the Klein, the Southwire, whatever you see at Home Depot. They don't have, if you can tell, these are very special. These don't splinter. They won't, I can't tell you how many times I've gotten a splinter from the fiberglass, the old school ones. Once I found these, they changed my life. These are absolutely wonderful. They last forever. They don't break or splinter like the other ones. They do cost a little bit more, like $100 as opposed to $50, $60 for the other sets, the cheaper sets. But I highly recommend, if you're a professional doing this every day in the field, that you pick up this more advanced set. This one's from Labor Saving Devices. There's a few other companies that make this high-grade snakes. They come in 6-foot sections. You get 5, and it's 30 feet total for $100. I can't live without these, to be honest. Another thing we need is wood. Wood, these little 1x2s, kind of scrappy wood, used for patching the drywall after the fact. Same thing, we use these screws for the drywall bracing. Now, specifically we use 1 1/4 screws because they will go through the drywall. They will go through a layer of drywall as well as reach into the wood but not go past the wood. And I do that specifically so that you can't shoot through the wood into a wire, into a pipe. Basically, using the 1 1/4 screws for patching drywall mitigates any type of liability that is involved when you're working inside walls, when you can't see what's behind there. But also, it's more efficiency because you don't have to worry about that stuff. You're going to need a saw to cut these woods. I prefer a reciprocating saw for this application. You're going to need a drill to drill in. I think that's about it. Maybe take off a wall plate or something like that. You're going to need your wire. Wire is necessary depending on what you're wiring up. We're doing Cat 6e in this application. The home is wired with Cat 6e. Currently, I like to wire Cat 6a only, any new circuits I build, but if there's a home that already has existing wiring, we like to match that. What else? For Cat in particular, we need our Cat termination tools, line verification tools, and our labeler to label both ends. Any circuit we build, it has integrity. That means we validate the circuit. We label, terminate, validate, and label the circuit as well as data log it. Now I think, one more very important thing, stud finder. Any cut you make, you need a stud finder. You have to know, you have to get some knowledge of what's in the wall before you go ahead and make a cut in the wall. We know there's a stud here, we know there's a stud on this side, we mark our studs, we make our cut in the middle. Beautiful. So, I think that about covers the necessary tools. I think that about wraps it up. I just want to thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate your time, and peace and love. We'll see you next time.
Oh my gosh, is that the Dreamedia van in my neighborhood? What? Wait, Dreamedia, come back!